Greetings everybody, Nick DiVirgilio here, and today we're going to have some fun with the UAD LA-2A collection of plugins. Let's do it. In this collection of plugins, you get 3 LA-2A compressors. The original LA-2, then you get the silver and gray LA-2As. The LA-2A is an optical compressor, and that gives this classic piece of recording gear its own vibe, its own character, and definitely its own sound. The original hardware pieces were introduced back in the 1960s, the LA-2 being the first compressor introduced. The gray and silver versions of the LA-2A came out a little bit later. The original hardware pieces are still really sought after even to this day, if you can find one. But not all of us, myself included, have the ability to own a real hardware LA-2A. But, the great folks at Universal Audio have faithfully modeled all 3 models of the LA-2A so we too can get that great LA-2A sound, vibe, and character in our own music, and it really does make a difference. You can purchase this exact collection of LA-2A compressors individually if you like. They'll run inside of any major DAW, and you can use any audio interface. Today, I'm using the RME Babyface Pro, which is a fantastic interface. Make sure you click on the link in the description below for more information. These compressors are really incredibly simple to use, and we'll get into that in just a second here, but first, let's talk about how they work on the inside. Well, I should say how they work on the inside of the hardware pieces that UA has pristinely modeled. Now hang with me for just a second here. This is the techie stuff, but it's how the LA-2As get that great sound, and it's pretty cool stuff. Inside the box is what they call a T4 photocell, and as you send more signal into the box, that photocell gets brighter, and as that photocell gets brighter, the impedance of the resistors increases, and that reduces the gain. There are a couple of other things on the box. One is the emphasis control. We'll get into that here in just a minute once we're inside the example portion of our video. And there's also a toggle switch on the silver and gray versions of the LA-2A for comp and limit. The LA-2As also have fixed attack and release. The attack is around 10 milliseconds and the release is around 60 milliseconds. But what's cool about the release is that the release also slows down as it gets to about 50% down its release pattern, right? Once it gets there, it'll slow down even more. That's a really cool thing. Say if you're working on maybe like a vocal, you have a loud part and then a soft part. Well, as the release is going down and it slows down, those soft parts will stay up in the mix a little bit more. It just makes it so much easier to mix those soft parts. They don't get buried in the rest of the music. And that's all there is to it. Ease of use and fantastic sound. What a great combination. So now, let's get into some examples. I have all 3 plugins open inside of Pro Tools right now so you can see what they look like. This is the silver version right up here. Yeah. This is the gray version right up there. And the bottom here is the old school LA-2 leveling amplifier. Each of the LA-2As are great for certain things throughout history. They're well known for those things. But I also want to say right here, don't let that scare you from using them on anything in your mix. They really are great for anything. The first thing we're going to check out here is the LA-2 on a vocal. My vocal. Like with all the great UAD plugins, they come with a fantastic set of presets. So go through the presets if you've never used one of these pieces before to hear what they do, but you can also start from scratch. I picked the preset male vocal, and this is what it sounds like, first with the compressor off, and then I'll turn it back on. Here we go. Reach down, hold the sound. Compressor in. Feel light, super tight. Back off. Smile once, and then again. And in. Sweeter things are in the air, happiness is everywhere. Super transparent, just giving it some body. That's what makes a great compressor great. Unless you're going to use it as an effect where you smash the heck out of it and you make it pump and do all those things. Really, you just want to smooth out the peaks and valleys and give it a nice transparent sound. Maybe add a little bit of grit and warmth to the sound, and that's exactly what this LA-2 is doing. Let's check out the vocal sound without the music in the background. First off, and then I'll turn it on. Here we go. Reach down, hold the sound. Now in. Feel light, super tight. Back out. Smile once. Listen again, you'll feel the body get bigger. Sweeter things are in the air, happiness is everywhere. So it's adding a nice bit of warmth and body to the vocal, which is great, without any EQ. That's the compressor doing all of that. Now we're going to check out the LA-2 on a bunch of background vocals. A big gang part. Our friend Annika sang all the voices here. She sounds amazing on this part. It's a really lush sound. And check out how the LA-2 just lifts everything up and just makes it sit in the mix really nicely. So we'll start with it off, and then I'll turn it on. Here we go. Sounds pretty good, but it needs a little something. Here it comes again. Compressor in. Yeah. That's the kind of stuff gets me really excited because it just brings such life to it all. And it's just a simple little peak reduction, a little gain, and you're rocking. Let's check out Annika's background vocals soloed here. I'll play the first run with it off, and then I'll turn it on for the second run. Here we go. Sounds nice, but then now listen for the warmth and the body come out. There's also a nice bit of brightness that gets added to this as well. And then the peak reduction is just making it sit in the mix right exactly where I need it to. Again, I can't emphasize it enough. Compression is a way to smooth out the peaks and valleys to get certain things inside your song to just sit. You know, songs can be lush and dense with a lot of stuff. This song has drums, bass, guitars, keyboards, a huge stack of background vocals, so everything needs its space. With these great UAD compressors like this LA-2, man, you can really just make it sit in there perfectly. It adds a little body, a little life, a little grit, a little bit of special sauce to the sound, and then it levels everything out in such a great musical way. Now we're going to hear the LA-2A Gray edition on an acoustic guitar. This is a stereo-tracked acoustic guitar, 2 separate parts to make a stereo track, and again, it's just going to add some nice life to it, and it actually widens the sound out to my ear even more. Here we go with it off first, and then I'll turn it on. Here we go. Sounds quite nice, but check it out with the LA-2A on it now. Wow, it really does a great job. Adds a little punch to the picking, the pick on the string. It adds a little punch to that sound, and again, makes it sit in the mix with some more body to the sound. Let's listen to it soloed. First time off, and then back on. Here we go. Not bad, right? But let's listen to it with the LA-2A engaged. Oh. Now this time, there's a little bit of pumping action. Sometimes you want that compressor pumping action to give it a little bit of movement. This is slight. There's not a ton of it in here, but it is like grabbing those first pick notes of the guitar part and making it kind of jump out just slightly. See if you can hear it one more time while it's soloed. It's a really cool effect. Let's check it out one more time. Awesome stuff. And then when it's in the song, you don't really hear that pumping. It's just making it sit in the song better. So cool. Now we're going to check out the LA-2A Gray on a Rhodes sound. What's cool about this is you have the initial chord, and then it sustains for a while, then another chord. So it's a very simple part. As those chords sustain, the LA-2A Gray really holds on to it, and as we talked about the release getting slower earlier in the video, this does a great job of holding on to the sound throughout the sustain. Check it out. It'll be off first, and then I'll turn it on. Compressor in. Let me do that one more time, the example, and let me turn on the compressor earlier. I'll do that. I'm going to turn on after 2 chords. Compressor in. Can you tell how it's just holding on as the sustain of the chord goes through? That's what I really appreciate about this compressor right here and the job that it's doing. Let's check out the Rhodes soloed. Now in. So you're getting that initial attack of the compressor grabbing the sound, but then it just lets it stay there throughout the whole sustained part of the chord. Let's check it out one more time. Very cool, very transparent, and great in the mix of the song. All right, now we're going to get into some drums. The kick drum and then the overall drum mix. We'll do some parallel compression here in just a second. But first, let's check out the silver on the kick drum. We'll start with the compressor off, and then I'll turn it on in just a second. Compressor in. Back out. Back in. When you put this compressor on this particular instrument, that initial attack of the low end, the compressor grabs it and levels it up so you really feel it along with hearing it more. If that makes sense, I hope it does. It does a great job at that. Let's listen to it one more time with the compressor in. You can really feel that kick drum now. Let me turn the compressor off here. It's still there, but it doesn't have as much life to it, right? Now, you could just turn the volume up, but you're still not going to get that pumping, that special sauce that the LA-2A is going to give it. That does round out the sound. It gives it a little bit more body. It's those little things that accumulate when you put the compression on and you add it to the whole mix. That little bit of body is going to make a huge difference in the grand scheme of your song. The last thing I want you to check out here is something called parallel compression. This has been a technique that's been used for forever in making music. And what we're going to do here is we're going to have the whole drum mix going down to one aux track, and then that same mix going to a separate aux track. On that separate aux track, I have an LA-2A silver. And the point here is to compress it a lot and mix the compressed sound in with the dry sound. And you're going to add a lot more life to the drum track overall. So we're going to start with the compression off. So you're just going to hear the drum track as it is. I left the compressor on the kick drum that we just heard a second ago, but there's no compression on the rest of the drum kit. See if you can hear the resonance of the whole drum track come to life. You'll hear the drums ringing. You'll hear the low end sustaining from the kick drum even more. There's just more life to the drum sound overall. Check it out. So that's without it on, and here's it on. Wow, what a difference. The drums sound good without it, but check it out again. It's not just the volume that you're adding here. You're adding the body and the warmth. One more time, with it off first, and I'll turn it on. And on. Yeah, you can hear the throw of the kick drum. The low end kind of sustains a little bit like out in the room. You hear the ambience of the room. All kinds of things are getting just turned up, and you hear them clearer now when you add in the compression overall on that parallel bus. It's a great technique to use. Now let's check out what the compression track sounds like on its own. So this is all the drums going through the LA-2A. You can hear it even more. Let's smash the heck out of it. Here we go, turning up the peak reduction. Lots of pumping. You'd have to crank it up to really hear it now. Let's start over at the beginning of the phrase. But that sounds amazing. Boosh. If that's what your song needs that pumping, just big fat action to it, just turn up that gain and give it a lot of peak reduction. That's a really cool sound. It's overly compressed, but in a great way. Now, what I can do is turn back in the dry signal, and we'll turn up the really hard compressed sound and see what that does. It's clean sounding, right? But let's turn up the other track. Let's see what it does. Oh. That's so cool. It sounds great. I get really excited hearing that kind of stuff. Now, I talked to you earlier about the comp and limit switch, right? The comp and limit switch just turns it up from 3 to 1 to infinity to 1. If you want to hear what the infinity to 1 sounds like, let's turn off the dry drum track and just hear the compression at infinity to 1. This should be even a lot more. So now you're getting a ton of pumping, right? Oh, what a cool sound. It's a great effect. I could listen to that kind of drum sound really all day. Put some distorted guitars underneath that and you're rocking and rolling. You You can also think of that a little bit if you do check out the UAD 1176 collection of plugins. You can do that smash setting where you take all the ratio buttons and you press them all in. You can get that same sort of effect as you do with the limit toggle switch right here. Last thing I want to show you here real quick before we end this video is what we talked about earlier, and this is the emphasis switch. It's a filter right here. It says HF. Each of the 3 plugins has this emphasis control here, and what it's doing is when it's all the way clockwise, all of the low-end information is being fed into the compressor. So it's going to compress all of that low-end stuff. When you turn it counterclockwise, it's going to start to ignore a lot of that low-end information and pay attention to more of the high-end information. So if you want a less body in the compressed sound, which you could totally get, just turn down this emphasis knob a little bit and it'll make a huge difference. So what I want to do is we're going to play this overly compressed sound, really hearing the body of the drum kit, and then I'll turn down the emphasis control and you'll hear the low end sort of kind of go away a little bit. Check it out. All right, now I'm going to turn this knob all the way counterclockwise. The kick drum is still there. You still hear low end. It's not completely gone by any stretch. But since it's going to pay attention to more of the high end now, the snare drum is actually more present in the sound. I'm going to turn the knob all the way to the right. You'll hear the snare drum, kind of the presence of the snare drum, go back a little bit, and I'll go back and forth. But check it out. See if you can't hear the difference. Okay, we're all the way counterclockwise. Snare drum out front. Let's go clockwise. See, now now it was paying attention to more of the low-end frequency, so that kick drum is more present, snare drum is backed off a little bit. If you want it to be a happy medium, just put it right in the middle. To me, that sounds really great right there. Nice snare drum presence, still getting the pumping action of the whole compressor, and the kick drum is in your face. So cool. And there you go, the UAD LA-2A collection of compressors. Fantastic plugins to add some great character to your music. Remember, you can buy this exact collection individually, so make sure you go to sweetwater.com, contact your Sweetwater sales engineer, or click on the link in the description below for more information. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I'm Nick DiVirgilio. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I finished in 54 minutes and 40 seconds.